Tertúlia.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today is May 23rd, 2010, Sunday. The entry number is 1576. There are 3 pages, 44 ologies, and 9 maxima. The theme is designation in the Mentalsomatology subdiscipline. The designation is the act or effect of designating, indicating, distinguishing, discerning, naming, qualifying, or determining some reality. The criteria of designation, the selective classification, the responsibility assignment, the indication of the purposes of evolutionary acts, the magnitude of research manifestation assessed through the qualification of designations, the designation of intersubstantial maxi-mechanism regarding the self-conscious minicog, the designation of the self-discernment of the lucid conscience, the intentionality expressed in the person's designation will. I would like to tell you that in synergismology there's an letter S missing. And in interaction, there is a letter T missing. In referenciology, we have 10 indications: the deepening of the research, the self-researchology, the deadlock in the research, the denotative language, and the technical repair. Emphatic sentence. The intelligent designation of some nature imposes itself over every task line of the lucid conscience, intermissivist, dedicated to the evolutionary cosmoethical experiments. How do you face the designation in your own life? Do designations influence the execution of your self-praxis? Designation is something very important, and it's worth thinking. Especially now that we are studying democracy, pure democracy, there is the Council of 500 and everything. So it's news. Question: how long after the desummation is consciousness ready to make intermissive course? How can we lead a person so he can make the intermissive course? Answer: it's not related to time. It's related to the evolutionary sheet. If one admits advanced process and has evolutionary intelligence, one is ready for intermissive course. Otherwise, forget it. That's what people say. Get mature and show up. How can we orient someone to be led? You should read Conscienciology Encyclopedia. Go against it. Make criticism and give us your critics to help. I would like to know what happened to Luiz Antônio Gasparetto. Was he far from Spiritism for the same reason you were? Thank you for your answer. You'd better send this question to him, not to me. I don't know what happened. Today he's working with several programs. He has a huge institution. He was very involved with the works of his mother, Zíbia. Other question, what's the process that happens during the vibrational state installation? For you to install vibrational state, you need will to move your energies. Your own will is energy. It works as if. How to develop hollow chakra flexibility in the vibrational state training? You should work making analysis, making research, interpreting the environment. When you enter a house, when you enter somewhere, you analyze the environment and choose the power spot for you to work. I work with statics and I am specialized in makeup. After studying about the pigments sold, I was surprised because Anvisa doesn't recognize the products. I am working on this formula to have a better product and not to mixture metal to be in contact with other people's skin. First, you are doing something bad. Putting metal on somebody else's skin, it's 99% negative. Tattoo, makeup tattoo is completely negative. It's stupidity. Don't make this. Pay attention. We can deal with statics and cosmetics, but be careful. And I have worked with it. Nothing happened to me because nobody complained, but you should take care. And nowadays there are many different things, and you can be intoxicated. People can die from cancer, and when you have the causa mortis, you never remember that it was that makeup, definitive makeup you made. So I would like to ask you, how were the mangoes yesterday, those fruits? Did you eat the mangoes? Did you like it? At least you approved, right? With your taste. That's to help everybody with the fruitarian diet. We bought the dates, now we bought the mangoes. Niterói and Campos. I would like to thank for this letter I have received from a friend that asked about Niterói and Campos to know if there was some institution there. Can you tell him about this? I thank you very much for this letter. I don't deserve that much. We have IIPC in Rio de Janeiro and also the IIPC campus in Saquarema. Rio de Janeiro, you can contact through 2021 3153 7574 or 3153 7575. And in Saquarema, the city code is 22 2654 1186. And you can also have further information in www.iipc.org. I have this Cognopolis newspaper that I got in the reception. It's written in March, but it's talking about some news. There is a photograph about the master plan and the portico. I don't know if it's new. Is it new? Oh, the date is old. Okay. The first ecological, the green house was made in Cognopolis. The basic idea is the condominium to become an example of Foz do Iguaçu. And there are several indications here, some publicizing. Whatever you look for, you'll find here. This photograph of this portico is great, isn't it? If we made this entrance, I will acknowledge you all. Very serious. Very beautiful, actually. I would like to tell you that I have a copy of an article, A Mission Storm. This article was published in that magazine, Zero Hora, from the community of Rio Grande do Sul. It's very well done, written by Dr. Juarez Freitas. Zero Hora magazine. But give me it back later, okay? It's mine. It's very interesting. He's the president of the public law, a very big organization. I would like to know regarding designation, okay, if it's done through the matter of the scene of the consciousness. When it's the person itself, yeah. For example, you, all of you, you have entered the intermissive course for your self-designation. They saw you were about to do it, but they asked you, take it or leave it. And you took it. Most of you have decided your own praxis. Self-designation. This self-designation is based on the person's profile, right? No, no, no. Through the evolutionary intelligence of the person. So from this point, I would like to understand in factology the criteria of the designation. Could you explain? For example, in the Council of 500, what do they do to place those people? How are those 9 people designated, I mean? They had a self-nomination. They were volunteered, okay? I am 100% favor to pure democracy. How does self-designation work? First, never push anyone. Give freedom, democracy to everybody. We can't push anyone, even to an honorific place. You have to respect people. In a background of group karmic interpretation, how does it work? It's when the person is has fallen apart. But there is this uplift, and the person recovers everything later. I was going to make this list of 7 subjects, and I have studied earlier today. So I would talk about minicog, Patreon clause in general, group karmic interprison, leadership, cosmovision, self-praxis, and perspective. All these subjects are designations for you to study. I think I'll put this list in this entry. Take note. Self-conscious minicog. Patreon clause. This is related to praxis and has many natures, okay? Group karmic interpretation. It's for the person to leave, okay? The interprison. leadership, cosmoethical leadership, the evolutionary cosmovision, and self-proexis, lucid one, when you are conscious, aware of that, and perspective regarding your existence, what's about to come. You have the prospectivology. Everything related to apex. All these designations are very serious. This leadership one is important. For example, if everybody has nominated the person to a certain area, a leadership, one should ponder. Pick up a microphone to make a question. You said that in group karmic interprison, in this case, it's for us to leave this interprison. Could you amplify this idea? When you see you have interprison, you must analyze what's the nature of that problem. You ask yourself, what have I done wrong? And what are the consequences I still have? So the self-designation is made of yourself. And you enter to clear, to finish with the Gordian knot, to alleviate that burden. Sometimes the interprison demands a whole life, all the resources, everything you have received to clear everything. Sometime when I was talking to you, you asked me the following questions. What was the weak traits that made you enter the interprison, and what is the strong trait that makes you leave it? Yes, that's very important. And the self-designation for some people is nothing more than the identification what is supposed to be done. You can be in another line of work. It's independent of what you're doing. The idea is very good. Professor, you talked about the leadership and the designation. Could you speak a little bit more? Leadership can start from a designation, and it may be not volunteer. One didn't decide to be a leader. It just came up. It happens to me with some secondary subjects, with comics. I started reading comics when I was 5 because there weren't many books, nor newspapers, nor magazines. In my hometown, there were very few people living there, 1937. So I started reading the comics, and I started making my own comics, designing my own comics. So I started drawing, and as time went by, I started buying books, and I prepared my own library when I was 9. So Luis Siqueira, who was my brother-in-law's friend, called me, and he gave me over 130 magazines, comics, and he said there couldn't be a gap in my library. So he gave me the sector, the department of comics. I continued buying books, amplifying my library. I even bought other people's library and the editors' stocks. And when you buy all this stuff, there are many garbage between the books. But I could separate the good comics, and I started making the Comicteca. About 1970, I had the surprise because people said I had the biggest comic collection in Brazil, and they found out it was actually the largest of the Latin America. There were many comics that we still have today, and National Library doesn't. And it's written in Portuguese. There were many people interested and many fanatics. The fanatics can be found in collection area, and there is such a dedication and effectiveness for what they collect. It's just so crazy. Yeah, and there are even psychiatric cases. And with time, I became a leader, but I didn't mean to be a leader. Life showed this way, and I was a collector of comics in Brazil. So everybody thought I was dead because I became a legend among them in 1980. And there are people that found out that I am the one studying Conscienciology, and I am as well that guy from the comic books. So it's a leadership I didn't ask for. I didn't know I was a leader. I couldn't refuse all this issue. So I tried to help other people. I created another great collection. There was this friend of our, Natalicio. I helped him create another collection. The publication of Nostalgia, Nostomania. There was a very great moment. And even the editors didn't have the magazines I had. So we borrowed to reprint and make new editions of Nostalgia. It's a kind of designation of leadership life itself awarded to me. I didn't know about that. And up to 1970, I can guarantee, I can assure that mine was the largest comic books library. I had to talk about that, make conference. Even Gilberto Freire, he was sat in front of me from sociology. Everything, lectures about comics, parapsychology, and so on. Many lectures. That was the way out. But it's something very, very nice, you know, it's cool. It's for fun, it's a club, so we understand these people. So when you understood you were in this role as a leader, you felt the responsibility to amplify that. Yeah, Otacito, one of the greatest comic drawer in Brazil, told me that I should honor this responsibility. That's why I made the comic catalog. We haven't published it because it had no value. With no prices of the comic books, it's useless. But we had 2 editions here. And it's in holocycle. This catalog has everything up to 1970 in details. The heroes, the authors, the drawer, like a biography with a lot of details. With this catalog, I could see, for you to have an idea, there are 10 great collections in Brazil. Most of them have 1,800 editions, and there are others with 700, 750. I mean samples, editions, okay? We have all of them here. The editors don't have it, no longer have it. At that time, they started looking for it, but it's very difficult because comics started fading away in the 80s. Those most rare ones started fading. But the wives were the guilty ones. They started burning the books to make room in their house. So there are many people who suffer from that, who cry over the spoiled milk. I had 2 houses, and I had a stamp of mine in the magazines. And I have many examples, many samples. So I use it to give people all those extra samples. This way, many people came from all over Brazil and abroad to visit my library. And they didn't even mean to study serious books. They only wanted to see the comic books. It's been for a long time. Today they are still coming here. They have discovered, they have found out the comics are still here, though we haven't publicized yet. But when Holoteca, the great Holoteca, is built and everything settled, we're gonna make publicizing, and it's gonna draw everybody, so they will be able to get interested in other subjects. So that's why it's very important for us to build this Holoteca. So the designation is something that in our life, you see, there are some difficult indirect designations, okay? There was this guy, he fell in love, he married a woman, and she had a son. He was growing. All of a sudden, the woman died. Nobody expected. He was designated as the father of the child because the biological father had already died. So he was designated as a father of a person he was not the real son. It was terrible. You see, it's a movie story. His paternity was designated by his destiny. He came to me and started complaining. What am I supposed to do? What do I have to do with this kid? I told him he was the one most important for that child. And I proved with logics. So the designation, the purpose of life is the determinism in your proexis. This case of the forced paternity, as he was reluctant according to the relatives. You see, there were no relatives, no grandpa, no grandma. It was his destiny designation. That's what I call the fatality. Life sets these traps, but it's positive. At the end, everybody's helped. You talked about the intermissive course. How does it happen? In this case of the intermissive course, the person decides if he or she is gonna enter the course or not. But for that, one should have a call. One should see if it's ready. You can see through the evolutionary sheet. You don't need an admission exam. One designates itself for that. You have that designation to enter, but when you are already inside, what do? The course orientation is not made by the person. He or she follows what the teachers say. But the designation in the course is regarding the praxis? Yes.
So what really matters is the balance, the personal balance of the person. If you are going to deal with someone who is a little bit more evolved than you, everything is a process of analyzing your evolutionary balance. So this designation is relative because there are a lot of things that the evoluciologists say and we just obey. But you are going to follow him because of your own will. He doesn't tell you what to do. He doesn't put you into a corner. It's a matter of the person to accept what he says, isn't it?
Sr. Waldo,
Professor,
só pode ampliar a
could you
condição da
amplify the
designação
condition
como
of
universo
the
consciente?
designation in terms of a mini-cog, self-conscious mini-cog? So designation comes from the max mechanism. After the person gets into the process and understands it, it gets easier. And the person is not going to have any problem or conflict, personal conflict. The person just follows the designations from the more evolved ones, because there are a lot of precedents in this case. I know because of the energy. I don't need to see the extraphysicals. If I perceive a positive energy, I can follow the idea. So it's just based on the energy. It's just a little blink. Energy is just like a little blink. And very subtle. So the involvement through the little blink, it's very good. I don't know if you have mentioned it on the page 15, Interociology is lacking a T. And we also have the antagonismology. There is in the last expression there is a lacking of accent.
A última designação está acento agudo no lugar do
we have an accent here. It's wrong, but it's corrected already. Yeah, this is one of our process. It's just a matter of typing. Every time I correct everything using the tools, what I am about to ask you is the following. Could you deepen this idea related to the second question? The designations influence the execution of self-praxis for you. So if someone has his own praxis, you ask him or her, have you decided everything about your praxis? Or is there an extra force or extra manifestation, an external manifestation that designate the condition for you? So the condition is that if you have a forced designation is when you have to do something. Is the case I just mentioned it. So there is a percentage of the determinism because of our interpretations. It's not volunteer. The person just gets rid of the determinism after she reached certain level and she overcame the basic bottleneck. While we have a bottleneck, the determinism is going to work or is going to perform over your free will. But by the time that the person has lucidity within the maxi mechanism, the determinism decreases. So the person is already following up superior power, something more cosmovisiologic. A teleguided would be in this context? Yeah, he is a professional. The amateur in this history is the desperto. Recently you have mentioned that the helpers sometimes induce the initiatives and the evolutiologists deduct the finitude. So the person is the one who leads the facts. No. So in our case, for example, the helpers, they induce a lot of tasks related to the praxis, our self-praxis, but most of those things depend on us, our self-motivation and everything. Some people just wait for the help from the helper, but it's not like that. It depends more of our free will. If you think about everything that you do, you don't make mistakes anymore. And the person doesn't make questions anymore to know where is this question from. The person makes a prophylaxis, a spontaneous prophylaxis. So the parapsychism is the one who commands this. Yeah, the parapsychism is something more advantage that you can trust in. Yeah, I would say a mature way of doing or things or deciding about things. Without parapsychism, people are mature. The professionalism is from the one who is very experienced. It just appears with the parapsychism. There is no way out because of the multidimensionality of the consciousness. So without parapsychism, the index of determinism is very big, isn't it? Yeah, people think that the people from religions have parapsychism, and they don't. You know, these crazy things that people do in their religions is just a process of emotions. See this condition. Take a look to this. Here in letter D behind you. The designations in the intermissive course are results of the finding of the facts for the previous life, or would be something different? I'm asking about the intermissivist. So the intermissivist see what is the reflection in himself. Everybody here had studied the personal case. In the intermissive course, what really matters is the person itself. So we have studied the mega weak traits in the intermissive course. For example, I took you, or I found you here in a good shape. The worst is just behind, is left behind. All the crises, the big crises, like throwing objects in the doctor's face, something like that. Yeah. If you go to the movie, you are going to see this example. So the first hysterical moment is over. You came here in the post-hysterical phase. So medicine has a specific name for that.
Agora veja, vem os caras agora que
which
estão
is
na fase
pitiism.
pré-pitiatismo.
So
É a pior que tem.
we have the
Que
phase
com os réus. Eles estão reclamando.
pre-pitiatism.
Quer dizer, eles nem chegaram nessa fase primeira de
So
Eu não,
the people who are coming are to the Conscienciology, they are in that phase. I am in a very good situation now.
Ele não precisar impor, né? A pessoa
So,
que decide tudo mais.
The helper doesn't impose anything. It's the person who decides. Everyone who is lucid
Agora sim, na verdade,
doesn't impose anything.
Num curso intermissivo que ele
For example, if the helper in the intermissive course, the helper is talking to us and exposing something to us. For example, as we have in the book, Cristo espera por ti. Christ waits for you. Defect actually predispose a very big lucid condition. The consciousness gets very intelligent, and she gets the ideas just like that. It's just very good. But this spirit's a very big nut. Our brain is our nut. So the brain is the best object we have in this dimension. Professor, here you comment in the parapathology, the extra-physical helper, through the meritocracy. This designation of the personal helper or the function helper. The affinity predisposes the relation between, but if the thing is official, always there is an evolutionologist behind this. Sometimes, by the time that you designate someone, they ask who is going and who is staying. So the evolutionologist is responsible for that time. He is the one who gives the casting vote. But behind this, there are the Serenissimos. Higher you get, if you take a cone or a pyramid, and you get to the top and get the vertex, everything behind is going to amplify. Lucidity is the same. Higher you get in your lucidity, bigger is the base that you have. The base and the cosmovision you have about the things. So in your case, with the enumerator and someone choose you, the Serenissimos had his function in this case. Yes, but there's a point that those things get spontaneous. Everything leads to that condition. But what does pave this way? What does the convergence for this ideal objectives? What? The condition is the qualification of the person's merits. It's the positive balance of the personal file. By the time that the idea comes, it gets irresistible. So the superior spirit has the irresistibility in his positioning. Facing the inferior spirit, this is the base of the evolutionary process. If we have a consciousness like that, and the person shows the thing, this is irresistible. You are not going to fight against the idea. It's the maximum. His argumentation is very good. So there is no use for fighting against the chains. What are the chains? Your body and the physical life, the human life. So here we are in a prison. And another thing, we breathe all the time. We do it all the time during our lifetime. This is the minimum. It's very good. It's part of the game. But for example, while the consciousness is like crazy for coming back and have a human life, all the intruders and the bad extraphysicals, they want to use the person's body in a bad way. When you come here and you are evolved, you want to make positive things in order to get your consciousness free. The body is something secondary. What? Can you perceive what is priority in our condition? It's a rare word, designation, but what I'm calling the attention is something really serious. Think about it. Have you been designated for what? Was it your will that designated, or somebody designated something for you? The designation made by the intruders, that is not the one, you know. More the person gets into the cosmic flow, it can be found a natural movement. And there is another thing which is forced. There's a difference between those things. If you get into a way and everything is getting wrong, you have to stop and make a reflection of 5 hours and see. Sometimes you are knocking the wrong door. That's the problem. You have to see, you have to analyze. Sometimes the things are hard until you overcome the bottleneck. But you have to make a question. Am I in the right place if everything is going wrong? So, designation is still at this intervention. So, sometimes it's really hard for people to interpret that. Why? Because in the beginning, to do anything, there is a lot of difficulties. You get to the point that you have to overcome the bottleneck, and then the things start going right. Until the person gets this point, they create a lot of conflicts, they deviate. So the limit for this bottleneck is the self-limitation. But the person knows when he or she is going to overcome this bottleneck. If the person identifies this moment, everything gets better. But the person must know what the bottleneck is. So people from Conscious can see it easily through analyzing the person. Consciential therapy is another example. With a couple of sections, they can see that. Where is the guardian knot? If the person doesn't overcome the knot, the guardian knot doesn't make any effect in her life. So I come back to the guy who was designated to raise the son who was not his son. This case is very impressive. Think about it. In terms of destiny, it's very impressive. But everything was studied before. For me, everything was obvious, clear. He was doing a very good job. Up to the time that I was following him up, he was doing all the things very well. The child was well led at that time, but think about it. This is a very impressive case. And the mother came to join both. But the one who had a problem between the man and the son was the son. It was not the man. It's very interesting. This case, we could write even a novel about that. You always say that when we have a daughter, she's related to the father, and the opposite is true. It's very objective, very obvious, clear. For example, if a man has 4 daughters or the woman has 4 sons, it's an obvious case. In the case of the man who has 4 daughters, they loved him and they hate the mother. She's the rival. I found some mothers who found out that reality. They knew about the situation. There are a lot of smart women. So the daughters were like raised already. They were 11, 13, 15. They were all in a good way. I'd like to talk about the CMP, the personal multi-existential cycle. One of the criteria is the group car.
A pessoa vai renascendo dentro daquele grupo.
So the person reborn or resomate within the same group. More specifically, what are the sub-criteria that define the moment that the person is going to be born again? The criteria is the capacity of the performance of the consciousness. What is the self-performance of this person? You have to analyze that. But in terms of the group, without getting into the activity circle, now you have to see the person. What is the qualification? It influences a lot when the person is resonating. So they study the person and the school and the work. They study the resume of the person. This is the obvious related to the personal evolution. This is a matter of resume. But the resume is the source. But what is the criteria for in order to interpret that? For example, there are 5 different consciousnesses who are able to do the text. They choose by the best resume. And nobody discusses because everything is based on facts and parafacts. It's not just the family. Everything is included. You have to think in terms of maxi mechanism. You have to see the family, the inbreedment, everything is secondary. You have to see the maxi mechanism. What does maxi mechanisms need? you can supply the maximum mechanism. So you take, instead of choosing by the person, you choose looking at the maximum mechanism. If you are thinking about the person, you are in a monovision. In terms of the evolutiologist, in the activity circle, it's easier to understand. You have a task and you have to perform the task. And those who are more free, they are ready to perform this task. But in the personal circle.
Mas esse no tapa, existe algum critério que está norteando isso.
If you talk about group karmas, you are talking about instinct. For example, when I started teaching in the institute about the multi-existential personal circle,
até então estava no grupo.
The person was supposed to think about the activity circle as well. This is the best thing for the person. But now, the rest, everything which is behind, this is the repetition from the previous lives. So the person is still primitive.
Que a pessoa está presa ali. Então,
so we have the group of karma interpretation. What does define?
Que é o instintivo.
Tudo é emoção.
Mas
everything is emotion. Think in this way. There's no way out. What defines the day, the age that the person is going to be born again? It's really hard. The like attracts like. The antas, they attract the andas. The wolves, they attract wolves. Everything is a matter of instinct. That's why we are at the first time in our lives talking about something with lucidity and logic. Before we didn't have logic and lucidity. Yeah, what we had before was just love and affectiveness and everything related to the emotions. We are trying to get rid of all these conditions. So there are people who resonate and people who doesn't resonate. Sometimes people don't resonate because he or she is shy. He doesn't feel himself prepared to face the situation here. This is related to the activity circle. Yeah, it is. Also, you know, in the intermissive course, we started thinking about that. After that, you knew that it was the most important thing to think about. You were supposed to think until the point that you could understand that clearly. I'm trying to increase my cosmovision. So, if you analyze, everything behind is like a nursery. It's not easy. If we think about it, it's not easy. We have to be very patient with all the group. So this nursery hospital planet, it's a psychiatric hospital. I avoid to say that, but sometimes I have to do it.
Psiquiatria infantil.
It's full of serial killers.
Tá, mas vamos pegar só para ilustrar isso. Pegar uma casuística tipo Palestina e Israel.
Let's talk about Palestinians and Israelis. They are killing each other.
Como homem bomba.
And there's a guy who had exploded as a bomb man. You can choose every day a different one. There are a lot of choice for you. There are guys who kill like 160 and it's very vulgar. The news are not doesn't create frisson anymore. This is the vulgarability of the bad. When you say that is an instinctive process in terms of the maxi mechanism, is there someone orientating that? Yes, the evolutionologist. What is the criteria that he used for choosing? The criteria is the amplification. One related to 5 or 500 or 5,000. The best for the major, for the most of the people. That's the criteria.
Desempenhar melhor o papel ali para ajudar todo mundo. Então, para 2, para 1.
One related to 1, one related to 100, to 100.
Tem uma questão de magnitude, então.
There's a magnitude issue. It's all a matter of magnitude. The example of the pyramid is the one.
Por isso que eu falo que ele é continental.
That's why I tell you that the Serenismus is a continental consciousness. Sometimes there is the intruder who make the intrusion in the couple in order to make the lady pregnant.
They don't avoid, the helpers don't avoid the pregnancy because there are some women that have affinity with their intruders. Every religious people have affinity with blind guiders. The blind follow the other blind people. That's why this reality with the clarification task is terrible. You just slap the face without intention. You become shut or you face the facts. You have to say the truth. Thinking about the global scale, the resummation, okay? 99% of these people resummated in the earth are what? Derived from our atmosphere. Yeah, the reurbanized consciousness. But if you go to the other side, there are more people. It's even worse. So you think you're going to desummate and never come back here because you'll be followed by 21,000 virgin women? It's bullshit. For how many centuries? Millennium. With the intermissive course, they are trying to say that's enough, at least for a reduced number of people. And it's not just a personal process the way it was. It's not the Serenissimus alone by himself. It's not the ideal. So now we have a group. This group can be called the intermissivist group. Everything is better, another condition. Because there has always been Serenissimus, but they were isolated, doing their own business. It was a pity, trying to help everybody, but it was useless to speak, because it's the same as teaching Greek to the bugs. Okay, talking about the maxi mechanism and the Serenissimus coordinating this subject. The same way we talked about birth control in the countries, there is control of resummation in a global scale, isn't there? No, up to a certain point, you just can't control it. There's no way to do that. It's very difficult. If you try to do that, you have evolutionary rape. The nature itself is made in a way that it's all automatic. These forces that lead the volcanoes, like that one from Iceland. Everything has a way. That's nature. Of course. You don't need to manage that. You deal with that later, you handle, you inspire some people, you help, you better the conceptions, the conditions. But there's this balance, this harmony game. Come on. Don't you think the Arabic, Islam, the Muslim people, Shiita, Sunnita, eat something. Don't you think they have at least a notion, a glimpse of what they're doing? Of course they do. They're fanatics. They're crazy people. Fanatism is craziness. And the worst people are the religious ones. Do you want something worse than this? Can we find something worse than this Pope? He has no suspiciometer. Imagine getting dressed like that. If you get some clothes like that, people will ask you if Carnival is still going on. All this because of conservatism, traditionalism, stupidity. For 1,500 years. Stupidity. That's not the way. Oh, you can't eat, you can't work on Saturday. For how many centuries? What's Saturday supposed to do with that? Just think about it. This traditionalism is very serious, it's wrong. Clarification task is missing. We have to talk about all these issues. People don't understand. They tell other people to kill. Hashi was killed. Think about that. I am saying some subjects, but they are everywhere. Tell me something more stupid than these bulb lamps. They reduce the expenditure of power, electric power, but they give you cancer. And the manufacturers don't want to talk about that. Something more stupid than people who are for marijuana and against the cigarettes, like in Holland. My little cat in my house is more smart than these guys. People can grow, can have a great intelligence, but sometimes there is this incoherence gap that it's like a notion. And it fixates. That's why we say when the person is crawling like dinosaur. They are lizards. The lizards make an effort to understand and to see if they can do something. After the lizard, there are also the meerkats, the suricate. There are people that are worse than meerkats, because at least the meerkats can see far from the distance. So do you understand clarification task? Do you see how difficult it is? Here today, nowadays, we can clarify. Martha, I asked them to talk to you about this lady that wants to come here and debate. You can send her the plane ticket. Yes, Waldo, I identified myself to her, but she didn't answer yet.
Okay.
We're not supposed to tell her name yet because we don't know if she's coming.
Por exemplo, uma situação que tem lá casal.
Waldo, for example, there is a couple and 3 consciousnesses want to resonate. What does define who comes first in this criteria of groupality? The co-creators that deal with resonation, they orient the best way they can, but everything depends on the parents, the energy, the environment. Sometimes they want John to come first, but the mother has affinity with Mary. So Mary, that is the worst, comes first. And there is a problem in the birth, and the mother dies, and nobody is born. So everything starts again. And maybe there is another mother, because she replaces that first one. And that previous mother comes as a daughter. So it goes on. But you talked about the co-creators, Waldo. Yeah, those who help us to rebirth. The way you help the cats to be born, the subhuman beings, the plants and everything. Everton, I want to talk to you about these chairs of mine, okay? Professor, letter B, about what you talked previously about the bottleneck, I would like to understand the critical difference between the person who is going through the bottleneck in the right direction and the other one that is in the wrong direction and is suffering all those accidents due to this situation. What is the definition for us to discern one from the other? The level of lucidity. One has more lucidity and the other doesn't. The preferences shows the discernment of the person. The choices regarding environment, ideas, everything. Professor, an example. If you choose a profession, work, whatever, and you suffer some accidents, and you don't know if it's related to a bottleneck or really an indication of life that's not correct. So how can you discern? How can you compare? You see what you have received in life, what you need to distribute to others. It will show the way. If you have received the designations from people around you, instruments, tools, everything intellectual, okay? And you try hard to play soccer, it means you're stupid.
For
example, Waldo, when one wants to study medicine, okay, and one goes through that exam, and always flunks. What indicates the difficulties or the wrong way? First, this person doesn't have capacity to graduate in medicine. Something else must be done. But one can start, as people say, Waldo, I wanted to be a doctor, so I couldn't be a doctor and I became a podologist. Podologist, a person who deals with foot, specialist in foot. But be careful. It's not. You can't say the word incorrectly, okay?
Dá exemplo.
Estou só avisando, o português é cheio de marotagem.
Another example, Waldo, in my area, We choose a work,
E, por alguma razão, você
and
sente
for
que
some
aquilo não está
reason we
fluindo
feel
bem, mesmo
it's
com
not
o trabalho,
flowing
com a assistência,
somehow,
você está atendendo,
even if
mas
it
tem alguma
involves
coisa estranha,
assistance.
seja pelo local,
Sometimes
seja
there
pelas pessoas que coordenam aquele
Strange
trabalho.
things,
E aí chega um momento
be it
que,
the
quando você está
environment
trabalhando
or
com
the
assistência,
person
nem
who
sempre
is
a gente
coordinating
consegue
the
de
work.
cara identificar se aquilo é um
Not
gargalo
always
inicial
we are
ou
able
é trabalho.
to see
Ou se
if
realmente
that's
aquilo
the
tem uma base
bottleneck
de
or if
comunicação
that has really a mafia on the backstage.
Ver o que se faz.
How can we deal with that? You need to insist and see what happens. If you have good intention, if you have cosmoethics, you will end up finding out and you will overcome all the problems. One single person can change a whole environment with 500 people. Everything depends on you.
Quem tem cosmoética tem mais
Those who have
poder.
cosmoethics have more power.
Isso é bom estudar sempre.
One should study
Às
that.
vezes as pessoas pensam que a maldade
You may think that
igual ao processo
due to the evil that is still on earth,
fica desacorosada,
and
perde, fica desacorosada.
Nazi, for example,
A vida não é
you may
assim.
feel demotivation, but everything happens in a
A
meritocracy,
pessoa tem mérito, ela recebe aquilo.
and if you have the merit, you receive everything in accordance with your quality. Question. I do a master in education and I want to lead my research to the role of education in the construction of the world state. Could you indicate some literature for me? You'd better enter in contact with the politics here from the Council of 500, like Julius Caesar. You'd better get in touch with him. It's a good choice. You're very intelligent. Please, could you elaborate on the designation of the Patreon clause of the self-praxis? Oh, you should tell this person about that entry. Yeah, you should look for the entry called Patreon clause. Designation of the interassistential maximum mechanism regarding the minicog. The problem is the following. The maximum mechanism supervises the tasks of the minicog. If the minicog follows what the maximum mechanism shows, one has better results. Waldo, what should I do to leave the interpretation with the cosmoethics? You should bless everybody and make the recomposition of the interpretation. You know about my books and you only need to read about it in the 700 experiments. In a cosmoethical way, you should bless everybody. Don't think ill of anyone. Like Ferris says, that liar. If you have a person that killed 3 people, this killer, this murderer, should go to a psychiatric hospital or to prison, and you should give work for him to do. One shouldn't be free. There should be a condemnation. But even condemning this person, even sending him to prison, you shouldn't hate this consciousness. It's just like a brother. He made horrendous crimes, but it's useless to hate. That's when we need to start studying. In theoryology, could you elaborate on the designation of praxeological issues? You need to know where you're going to. What's your Patreon clause? What's your goal? That's what Patreon clause is related to. What's your main focus? Principiology, the positioning of the personal principle It's what the person finds to reach this objective that we are talking about, related to proaxis. And you need to have your own experience. It doesn't matter what other people do, what their opinion is, doesn't matter. You can't admit, you can't assume other people's experience. You have to have your own proof, your own experience. How was this change of ego from collector to doctor? No, I didn't change my ego. I have never been a collector. I always wanted to be a doctor since I was a child. And I have always wanted to study the phenomena. So medicine, in my case, was just a way to find the phenomena, the parapsychical phenomena. My intention is to study what is behind the people's foreheads. But you do lots of jobs, freelance jobs. Question, you had many egos: dentist, writer, interassistentialist, representative of the stock market, collector, mega leader of institutions of Conscienciology, and now lexicographer. How can you administrate, manage all these roles, self and hetero-designated? Well, I do what I can to be in accordance with cosmoethics. Could you elaborate on some of those designations? He wants me to give him a course. If he wants me to talk about that subject during a week. So that's good for us to have a biography, you know, to clarify that. We can talk about one of these subjects. Let's see. For example, he says militant. We need to know what he's talking about. You know who is saying this? Who brought this question? Claudio. He knows me a lot, that's why he mixed all this information. There's something you missed here in this list, the cosmoethics. I am really making an effort to see if I am a cosmoethicist. I'm not saying I practice it, just to be theoretical. And he didn't even remember that. He also didn't mention that I am one of that nicknames, heresiarch. You forgot that. This is a very, very honored. I'm very honored to be heresiarch. So let's see if those who are writing my biography could answer this question. There's also the shooting war. I was a shooter. I was obliged by law. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to enter college, to do any course at that time. And it was useless to go there limping or saying that I was deaf, because everybody was doctor and they knew me. I couldn't lie. In the army, there were people that worked with me. Sergeant, Mr. Something, the lieutenants. That's why I became ghostwriter of those speeches. The full-time family carrier that can't pass this occupation to another person should be considered a suffering, a fatality. Well, you have looked for that in this or in previous lives. To be carrier, can one be also Penta practitioner and self-didactist in Conscienciology? Yes, and you need also to think well of other people. Question. I am doing the voltaic arc with my partner, and we are having very good results. We are not volunteers, but we have known many techniques, and block telepathy happens. Some olorization also happens, and we hear some noises. What do you think? Should we continue doing the voltaic arc? Yes, you can, but keep the environment positive and be careful with the time you do this. If you do it every day at the same time, it will attract other people. By other people, I mean other extra-physical people, okay? We are from Rio de Janeiro and went to CEAEC in April. We are those people, a doctor and a policeman. Do you remember? Yeah, I remember you. Well, that's great. She's great, the doctor, anesthesiologist, and he is also very good, very lucid. Question, could you explain about factology, page 14, in the second line, the magnitude of research manifestations assessed through the qualification designations? Well, when you enter in your life and you have things to be done and you think that is part of your existential program, there are some issues that should be investigated. You should amplify your knowledge and other people's knowledge through research. So, in this case, you need to assess the qualification of what you received throughout life. Your company, evolutionary company, that I consider really important. And in your case, also those people who you must assist and who you carry with you, just like your son. Everything has a reason. It's a problem, an issue of the past. It shows you have more energy, performance, potential, talent than everything you have done until now. You can't say the opposite because it's true. I have noticed that you didn't show up this week. Are you okay? Just a question, okay? Waldo, I had a question, I have a doubt. We often talk about the lack of volunteer, but we say that there are many people, but we can't count on people here. Is this a problem of designation? Should we perfect the process of placing each person in the right activity? The best is first to adequate the profile of the person to the function. When one is really adequate to that activity, one can amplify all the set, because the self-motivation of that consciousness can make other people be motivated also. When it doesn't happen, the profile is not adjusted to the right work. It's the casting. It's very difficult to find the right actor, the right artist, that one adequated to that role. Very difficult. Most people are ham actors. You need to help one to create, okay? Yeah, you can also motivate one to develop that talent, but most of them are ham actors. They haven't created studio actors yet. When you talk about ham actor, it means that the person enters, but one is not ready, okay? Yeah, the performance is not good. The person tries to go easy, but with no effort. There are many people like that. And just take a look. When the person arrives and it mumbles, just don't count on that person. And there are many people who come here, and when they're going to speak, they're about to express themselves, they start mumbling. It doesn't matter if one is ugly, man, woman, short, tall, if has formal education. This is all secondary. But mumbling, that's awful. This is just an example, okay, of an obvious weak trait. Okay, Waldo, sometimes you have 10 outstanding people who are not interested, and you have only this one mumbling people. The first thing is for you to send this person to the phonoaudiologist. You send the person to the specialist and tell him or her to come back later. Up there we have Regina there. She's phonoaudiologist. Are you still working as a phonoaudiologist? Yes, 12 hours a day. Do you agree with me? This is one of the first weak traits that the person must overcome? Yeah, because communication is when you express yourself. So obvious. The person didn't break free yet. Most of these people is due to their parents. Sometimes the person has a mafia behind her. The father and the mother. And there it goes, due to the repression. Most of the people speaks that way because of the repression. Let's make a relay against. We are against talking, mumbling. Something about mumbling. Let's do a relay. So these people must be in front of the protest. What happens is the following. I've been working in the debates here, and the people goes there and get really excited, and she wants to work with that, and the person just doesn't show up anymore because she or he tells me that they couldn't come back. You have to get rid of this person. If the person doesn't do what he or she is supposed to do, forget him or her. There is a mob of ham actors. It's always gonna be like that. If the person can't do something she promised, but she couldn't perform the task, you have to examine behind the person. You are going to find out that there are a lot of intruders behind her. So sometimes it passes like 3 years and the person is still with the same intruders. There are people who keeps this mob behind her for 15 years. It's a critical subject. The task, her time and date and profile. We always have an ideal actor and another one who has the potentiality.
É que é até relativa, mas o físico é mais a personalidade.
The physique is the perfect personality.
Mas agora o outro aí.
The other one is hard in terms of communication, especially.
Eu estou falando com o Flávio sobre
I'm talking about this with Flavio because within our mechanism of work here in our process in ICCC, our work with the apex, everything needs communication, communicability. If you take a look in the chart of the specialities, I don't know where the chart is, but there is a predominance in terms of communication. Communication is something really important. There are a lot of specialities or fields of study that deals with communicability. Think about lucid projection is communicability. Parapsychism is communication as well. To write a book, when I tell you where is the book, this is communication. The self-relay is communication. And is a communication for the person herself, and the person doesn't realize about that. The time capsule is a self-communication. I'm going to communicate to myself. So, classroom is the first laboratory for this person. And we can see in the classroom the talents, the potentiality in order to invest in the person, but there's no miracles. I had a dream with my father, who decimated 10 years ago. I live in Salvador. When I called my mother, she confirmed that she was feeling better. And I want to know if I had a communication with my father. Take a note of everything and also take a look if there is going to happen something else. It can be. I'd like to know about the resummation, because since I was born, my ideas doesn't go on with my family. I am always searching for information, and my family doesn't want to know about anything, just money and material things. The first thing is how you are doing with your praxis. Where is your book? It doesn't matter your family, what they want, if they don't want anything. The problem here is you. After you answer this question, let's see what you have been doing to your group. But the first thing you have to analyze is yourself. Don't use your name. Be careful. Your last name is not good in this history. You have to be aware of that. I studied law, and I like this area very much, but I would like to know which is the correct posture or facing the other professionals who are looking for money, and they are related to the corruption. In terms of law, what I say is, just through law, the person reads paralology, and just through the paralology, consciousness can become an evolutionologist. So it's necessary that the person has a contact with all the facts and process, let's say, needs, the lacking of the people's life, and the law allows the person to see that. For example, an evolutionologist, he had dealt with a lot of people, and the law brings this opportunity to the person. Here I have Enrico Ferri, the accusation speech. This man dealt with the worst area in terms of law, but he made a lot of assistance. He was defending the victims. So if he was for the victims, and he made a good job, you have to think about. This is the accusation discourse for the victims is the subtitle. It's a very small book and it's a synthesis of his speech. I'm going to read something for you. The delete is a form of cruelty, human cruelty, but we are not allowed to hate people. This is very cosmoetic. He is incredible. We have to reach a phase in our lives that the criminal leaves the arms behind and start right. So we have to study every crime in a different way. Here he always talks about the consolation task. So the author talks about clarifying people instead of giving to the folks the things they need. This is the Brazilian problem. This is the Lulism. We have all this problem here in Brazil. It's all a matter of education. He is saying here, I'm going to put his context for you to understand his intelligence. Dimitz is not, has not a fault because of that. Dimitz is someone really rich, and he was condemned because he was very rich, but he was helping the others. He was helping the workers, but he was the one who was rich. He was the owner of the farmer and everything, and he was helping the others. They were facing the man because he was rich. It's through education and organization of the works and transformation of the law and the economic way is that we are going to solve the problem. It's just the school that is going to solve all the problems. Can you understand the level of this? It's all a level of consolation task. The guy understood what consolation task means. If he was here, I could tell him about that. For example, in terms of Brazil, the differences between the big fortune and the big misery. So they have other names for the social differences and equality, social equality. See what we have here. She was like an Italian, a typical Italian. He's very rhetoric, but there were certain thoughts that he wrote that were just great. This is the third time that I talk about this book. This is the third book that I read about, that he was the author. He participated in a lot of different processes. Professor, here on letter B, you told us in another day that if someone can stop making mistakes with rationality. Well, the tendency is this, but don't put me as an absolute in this situation. Someone can be in a regressive situation.
Aquela guerra, naquele conflito.
So,
tinha amigo seu do espiritismo que o senhor falou que
you were talking about friends that you have,
como é que era a condição dele?
you had in the past, and he never made a mistake. I'm going to tell you why he didn't make any mistake. All the things that he studied, he was doing right. He was very honest. He was acting in a high level. He got into the Spiritism. He admitted every idea. He got into the Spiritism. He started, studied, admitted everything from Allan Kardec, but he was like, he was not a fanatic spirit. He admitted some things, but he used to ponder about things. He saw that he could make more assistance if he could get into the Masonry. So Masonry allowed him to make more assistance. He got a profession, an occupation, he got married, he had children. I used to have lunch with them. I knew him a lot. He was a kind of a person who was well trusted by everyone. He was like participating in 10 different institutions, everything related to assistance. He got a profession, an occupation. He was an ophthalmologist, and he used to take care of the people, and he was the director. He had a very busy work. And as the time went by, he was working in those institutions. He was a good example. He was a very good example. One of the most serious things that he did was to lead the young people. He was kind of a master, even for me. He was older and even more experienced. He was double-aged related to me. So he never took a wrong decision. He was very discreet. He used to abstain himself in doubt. He was always out of the wrong things. So he was a good example for me and a lot of people as well. But it was strange, weird, because this man should be honored in a public square, and he was not. So his strongest trait was the coherence. No. He was like, he never got into the politics. He used to help the guys, really help them. So he was super coherent. Yes, he was coherent all the time. But see, he was the guy who was the one who wanted the war in the previous life. So he came to assist the people from the war. So he was so good. And I could see that I could never tell him about that, but he was too good to be true. There was no environment to say that. I could not talk about that with him. By the time that there was this war, was he coherent like that? He was very young at that time, full of energy. You know that these very big guys are a little bit dangerous. They have a lot of energy. So this process of being in a war was maybe because of that. He was full of energy and he was just a leader in that movement, you know. But later on it was like he got everything right again. Did you understand that? When I go back to Uberaba, I'm going to ask about him again and his family. Okay.
Obrigado. Pontuações de hoje.
Here we have some punctuations. 112 presents, 20 questions, present questions, and 16 online. We have some messages from Marcos Dunk, Waldson, Vibrational State Course, and Paula, the Master Plane of Cognopolis, and Rômulo, the CP1 in Foz. Tomorrow we are going to have 20 entries for the new lottery. They are the following. Unavoidable friendship, the priority self-experience, precedent ego, fixation, miscigenation,
instantaneidade consciencial,
consciential instantaneity,
consciencial regressivo,
regressive consciential mega shock,
mega trafá,
cultural mega idiotism,
memória encapsulada,
sheltered memory,
inassimilável, pescoço,
neck,
preço do ideal,
the price of the ideal,
discernimento,
the first discernment,
substituição programada.
Programmated substitution. So here we have the messages from the Encyclopedia France. Good afternoon all. We invited today the teacher, Cristiane Ferraro, who is the coordinator of the Holocycle, to talk about, very fast, about the Holocycle and the program, the Encyclopedia France. Good afternoon all. The objective here is to talk about the benefits of being a friend of the encyclopedia. The first one is the intimate satisfaction when you are collaborating in a clarifying project about the consciential reality. And the other benefit is the access of the database of the Holocycle and the Holoteca, and which have a lot of lexicons, and we also can make research, raising information in order to base the bibliographic part of our self-production. By the time that we do this research through the Holo server, we can have ideas in order to write our books and articles. So this is my invitation and my suggestion to participate of this holothosine and also participate of this process of education through conscienciology. The subscriptions can be through the site and the CEAEC reception.
So guys, today we're going to watch this movie in popcorn session. We show the journey of the soul, the true story of Sabrina Spierling. It involves Jung and psychoanalysis, and Ivo Valente is going to comment on this. movie. We also gonna celebrate the birthday of two people. So tonight, 8:30.
Olá a todos.
Good afternoon.
O meu recado vai para todos aqueles que querem entender o
For
estado
those who want to
vibracional,
understand the
que querem
vibrational
qualificar o
state
seu
and want
estado
to qualify
que querem
the
entender a
personal
diferença entre
vibrational
estado
state
vibracional
and
e
to know
estado tensional.
the difference
O curso
between
teórico
the
prático
vibrational
de
state
8
and
horas
the tension
no dia
state.
12 de junho,
This
Namorados,
course is going to take place in
ótimo
June
presente para as
12th,
duplas.
the
acontecer
Valentine's
no
Day.
discernimento
It's going to
com os
take place in the
professores
discernment
Wagner
with
Alegrete
the
e
Wagner
Nancy
and Nancy
Eu
Trivelato.
quero avisar também
I'd
que
like
ainda
to
temos
tell you
vagas que
that
aqueles que
we still
interessados
have
podem se
place
inscrever na
for those who
administração
are
do
interested.
discernimento ou pelo e-mail
And you can look for the discernmental administration. For the Tertulians, you can contact us using the telephones 45 84094146. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I would like to invite you to participate in the master plan during the corporation meeting in discernment. This workshop is supposed to plan an organized plan in Cognopolis, in Foz do Iguaçu, for it not to have any spontaneous growth and generate other problems like in big centers. So we would like to know what Cognopolis want, what do we want, and to have a view from now to 10 years. Those who want to know about what is a master plan can access www.discernimento.org/master plan. We're gonna talk about environment and social, economical development. We wait for you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, all.
O meu recado é para quem
My
quer
message is for those who want to develop the communicability, communication.
Tanto para quem fala para dentro quanto para quem acha que escreve
For
pouco ou não
those who
publica.
doesn't like to talk or write just a little, we have at least 3 activities here in ICCC, and generally people don't observe and don't give the importance for the activities. The first one is the open space in the shopping center.
Trânsito de 3.000 pessoas
So this place has an audience of 300
porque ninguém se interessa
3,000 people daily.
O que é Conscienciologia.
And it's always closed because people are not interested in volunteering there. We need volunteers for that place, and in order to turn that activity reach opportunity for the volunteers and the population in general. The second activity is the weekly article in the main newspaper, which is Gazeta do Iguaçu. We have a lacking of articles, and I am almost the only one who writes weekly in this newspaper. We have a channel here to talk about Conscienciology to all the population. So if you use a very easy language, you could write an article for this newspaper. And the third activity is the debates that we have on Sundays. We need the debaters themselves and those who want to transform the debates in big events and call people outside of the ICCC to participate. It's going to be within 30 minutes. Today, teacher Carla Uma is going to talk about the evolutionary scale. We are going to debate about this theme here in the Saloon of Events. Thank you very
Estou aqui para
much.
divulgar o curso de extensão
I
em
would like
Conscienciologia e
to
Projeciologia 1, o ECP1.
publicize the extension in Conscienciology and Projectology in June 13 with the professors Eliana Schianti and Marcelo Silva. It's made for us to make an immersion in our self-research. You can call the IIPC from Foz do Iguaçu, or you can call the number 2102-1488.
Tomorrow we have an entry which is
Obrigado a todos e uma boa tarde.
spare parts. Thank you very much and good afternoon.